Great. Well, hello everyone and welcome. We're very excited to host our second West Kootenay Climate Hub webinar series that features hub partners and initiatives. And as I mentioned, feel free to introduce yourself in chat. And before we get started, I want to acknowledge with sincere gratitude and humility that we're on the traditional and unceded territories of the Sinixt, Ktunaxa, and the Syilx peoples. And in moving forward in these unsettled times that we're in, I feel it's imperative that our culture supports Indigenous peoples, mends the harm, and asks for guidance to live gently so that future generations of humans and other life may be able to live and thrive here. Sorry if I sound emotional, but boy, is that not what we need. So I want to mention a little bit about the West Kootenay Climate Hub before we get going. We're a new organization that launched last fall after having conversations with others in our community for over a year. We're a solutions-focused, nonpartisan, and volunteer-led organization, and our mission is to accelerate climate action in our region by helping dedicated individuals, volunteers, and our 22 partner organizations better communicate and collaborate to amplify each other's work and amplify climate action. We also share resources, successes, and ideas with other climate hubs across the country as part of the Community Climate Hub Initiative. So by attending this webinar, you're already helping to be part of this, so thank you. And please watch our April newsletter for details about next month's webinar, which might be shifted a week because of Easter weekend. And that would have it land on Earth Day, so that's April 22nd. Hopefully that works out as well. We're going to feature in that one hub partner Kootenay Outdoor and Environmental Learning Society, and the topic is closing the circular economy loop locally. So without further ado, I'm really excited to pass things along to Salita Work with the West Kootenay Cycling Coalition.
Hi, everybody. I'm just going to give you a brief introduction of myself so you know my background, and then we'll get into the presentation and I'll figure out how to share my screen. I'm an artist and a designer. I've got over 20 years of experience working in creative fields. I'm probably best known for my eco retail shop called Reworks that I opened in Calgary in 2011. My husband and I just recently moved back to our family farm in Beasley. We're turning it into an eco retreat. So Bear Spring Eco Retreat is actually finally open, and we will have glamping available as of May. And I just want to say a special thank to my parents who've helped me work on this project here at the farm. I'm passionate about living an eco-friendly lifestyle, which is one of the reasons why we came back here. I'm concerned about climate change, and I do believe that it's possible to live a comfortable life within a sustainable footprint. Transportation is a major contributor to toxic emissions, and that's why I swapped my car out for a bicycle almost 10 years ago. So I rode almost exclusively when I lived in Calgary by bike year-round. And when I moved back here to Nelson, I was sad to see that we've made little progress in building infrastructure to support my cycling habit. So I got involved, and so I'm now on the board of the West Kootenay Cycling Coalition, and I'm helping to put active transport in so that we can get around safely without driving here in the Kootenays. So we have been working on a plan, and I'm going to share my screen here. There we go. Everyone can see that okay?
Looks good.
All right. Well, I guess first of all, I should talk a little bit about the West Kootenay Cycling Coalition. We are a nonprofit society, and we advocate, help offer guidance and education about active transport. And we hope to build it and prioritize it throughout the West Kootenays. And by active transport, I don't just mean biking, even though, you know, we have a bias towards bicycles, but I also mean walking, taking the bus, and we also hope to see passenger rail come into the mix as well. Uh-oh, I'm not advancing. Oh, there we go. Okay. Some of the goals that we have this year for the West Kootenay Cycling Coalition are, first of all, to increase our membership. We recently won a BC Cycling Coalition community grant of $5,000, which is going to help us go a long way towards increasing our membership. So we'll be able to purchase things like swag and cards and hopefully a tent so we can go to events and be able to, help further our initiatives. We have a bike share program that is going to be rolled out hopefully later this year, and it's actually cargo bikes that will help people be able to go get their kids and take groceries home or go to a hockey game or even maybe take your puppy to the park. They're electric and will be available year round. So really excited to see that come to Nelson. And then our focal point this year, we've chosen 5 key areas. Of course, we want to see a network throughout the entire of the Kootenays, but we realize that we have to prioritize because there's only so much a volunteer board can get done in a year. So our priorities this year are Nelson to Balfour, so along the North Shore, seeing how we can make that safer. Nelson to Tagum, Castlegar to Trail to Fruitvale. I believe there is already actually a trail in the works there. And Silverton, I don't know why it says Roseberry, but it should say Silverton to New Denver. It's a short route there, but we'd like to see a safer way to get from one community to another without having to drive. We also are going to be hosting lots more events this year, which that community grant will help us roll out as well. So the first one coming up is actually next Saturday. We're hosting a bike rave. It's a rolling dance party for Earth Hour. Everyone is invited. It's all ages and it starts at Lakeside Park at 8 p.m. And there will be prizes for the best costumes. So, bring out your neon and the best bike lights as well. If you go to our Facebook page, you can even put in a song request and I will be making a playlist that will play for our rolling dance party. And then next month, we've got a booth set up at the Tagum Hall Market for Earth Day. We'll be offering some tune-ups if you ride your bike there and other little goodies. And then, please do follow along on our West Kootenay Cycling community page because we will be adding new events every month. And now on to the most important part of the presentation, our active transport network vision. So we want to plan a year-round, inclusive, accessible, protected pathway that links Castlegar to Nelson that can be used for safe commuting and recreation. And to be clear, this is actually part of a larger vision that encompasses a multi-modal active transport network to connect all the Kootenays that would include bus, passenger rail, and a protected pathway. We have quite a few members throughout the community. Thank you in part to the West Kootenay Climate Hub, but we've got Trails BC, there's people from Highways, RDC planners, RDCK Parks managers, Kootenay Adaptive Sports Association, members from Selkirk College, the City of Nelson and their planners, and of course you, the residents, and other community planning professionals and expertise that are helping us develop this network. For this network, we have a phenomenal grant opportunity available. The federal government has put forward $400 million for active transport projects. And so we have gotten approvals from the RDCK to support us at a municipal level in submitting an application for $50,000 for a feasibility study that we can use to see if we can put our dream route in place between Nelson and Castlegar. This grant application will be largely driven by our group, the West Kootenay Cycling Coalition. So we will be actually preparing the grant, and we are going to be partnering with Urban Systems, which is a big engineering company that has a lot of experience doing these type of proposals. They'll be providing us with a high-level Class D capital cost estimate. As well, we will be getting a lot of support from other nonprofits and agencies who will be writing us letters and talking about how they think this pathway would, be well utilized and how we can really use it and benefit from it. And on to the best part, the actual pathway. So this is our initial proposal. Of course, this is the dream still, and we don't know how much of it's actually feasible. So that's what the grant money will be used for. We have methodically thought about how it would connect to other pathways that already exist. So if you look at this map, you can see the solid red lines are what's already existing, and the dotted red line is what we're proposing, where the route could go. I've also added in train stations, because it would be awesome if we also had passenger rail to complement it, as well as bus stations and amenities. And I'm hoping that as we're moving through this feasibility, that we are able to reutilize some of the existing infrastructure that we already have. So for example, if we look at this closer up section between Nelson and Tagum, it would be ideal if we could, have a stop at Groman Narrows Park, one at Tagum Community Hall. If we could utilize those, and it wouldn't be as much effort and money to put into having amenities like public washrooms and safe places to park your bike. I've also ridden these routes, and many of us have also ridden other portions of it and added in their expertise. And you can see that there are pinch points if you're familiar with this yourself. And so we've offered also some other suggestions that may help make that pathway be even safer. So, eliminating passing lanes in areas where there's lots of other types of roads coming in and out, they seem quite dangerous, and that would be a hazard if you're on a bicycle. Even lowering speed limits might be helpful. We've also tried to situate the pathway such that, if you had come across like crappy weather and the day started out nice, but it started raining, there's intermittent train stations and bus stations where you have other options to, bail if you need to. And so you can kind of see where we've tried to add in those stops where they're close to where people live, where people need to go, corner stores and stuff like that. So you guys will get a copy of these maps so you can take a look at them. We would love to hear your feedback, and hopefully you'll be able to provide some of that in the breakout groups after this presentation. I love the idea of having stops at the community halls. Community halls are really underutilized, and how great would it be if they could be, a community place that are open every day, all the time, where people could go there and use them to warm up or stop for a cup of coffee on their way to work. And then, of course, other things like Selkirk College is kind of like on an island unto itself. It would be really nice to be able to have better access other than car to get there. I even threw in a gondola. I've heard there was a dream to have a gondola go from Zuckerberg Island to connect the downtown core to Selkirk College. So, maybe that could link up with a bike path that goes to a train station. This is all part of the dream. And speaking of the dream, we've been calling our project the dream, but since we feel like we're being able to get closer and closer to making this a reality, we started thinking that this route needs a name. And so some of our initial ideas were station to station, thinking about, linking up the Castlegar station house to the Nelson train station. We also had another idea of Nelgar, combining Nelson and Castlegar, gar being the French word for station. But we would love to hear your ideas. So please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll record them all and help them. We'll get them to help us, determine a name in the future. We also are going to be doing a poll right after this presentation, and the poll is going to help us with the breakout questions that we're going to review. So if you could do those poll questions right after this, and then we'll break out and discuss some of these ideas. And then before we do that, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what that infrastructure would look like. So it's not like just a painted pathway on the side of the road using a shoulder. I'm thinking like, you know, cement barriers, maybe even pathways that aren't even close to the highway. This needs to be infrastructure that, you know, you would trust your 5-year-old on. So as you can see here, there's various ones in urban and country settings. There's some places along our route where we even probably need to be able to build a bridge. There's been a lot of talk about utilizing the old Tagum Bridge pilings and building a footbridge through there, as opposed to trying to add a pedestrian section onto the existing highway bridge. That multi-modal active transport network needs to connect different types of transport too. So, you know, we envision that you could take your bike on a bus or a train easily. One of the drawbacks we have is that not all the buses that we currently have bike racks. And then the other problem is that they only have 2. So if you have all of a sudden a huge uptick in people cycling and it's a rainy day, I mean, some people are just going to be stuck. So perhaps we need to add trailer infrastructure like this here, where you could put like 20 bikes on there, and it would make that route even more accessible. And of course, it needs to be accessible to many different kinds, not just athletes, you know, kids, people that want to just ride leisurely, elderly and mobility challenged, people in wheelchairs, moms in strollers. And then that brings me to another thing that is helpful: community events that are active transport related. When I lived in Calgary, we did all sorts of crazy events to get people out and to normalize bike riding. So it was not, a lot of times people view bike riding, well, we call it cycling. And generally, you know, cycling is viewed as a sport and not necessarily a means of transportation. And so by doing these kind of community events, it normalizes it, it makes it accessible to many more people. So some of the crazy events we did is we had a folding whānau where we rode 70 kilometers on a route through all these different parks, and everyone rolled on a folding bike. There was no regular size bikes. So it ranged from like single speed to 6 speed. And it was a slow road. I don't think we went more than 15 kilometers an hour. So fairly accessible to most bike riders. When the COVID broke out and everyone was stuck in lockdowns, we got permission to do this rolling caravan. So the music is actually pedal powered inside this trike here. And we just rode around streets and provided entertainment to people in their apartments. And we got lots of cheering from the balconies and stuff. It was fun. We did a tweed ride, and everyone wore their finest tweed. And that was kind of fun because it just kind of showcased that you didn't need to wear a kit to ride your bike. You could put a skirt on and shoes and a suit and ride and enjoy yourself. We did a Mad Max ride. It was kind of like a friendly protest for climate action, sort of like living the apocalypse so that we can avoid it. So all the costumes were made out of recycled stuff, and it was all ages as well. We had prizes for the best dressed family. So it was really cute to see babies dressed up in the total Mad Max post-apocalyptic outfits. We do a Santa ride. Usually we raise money for charity. Everyone dressing up as Santas. It's really fun at Christmas time. And it also kind of normalizes riding bikes in, you know, the winter, which everyone thinks is crazy, but it's actually really fun and quite doable if it's not too deep. I was lucky enough to be in Calgary when they actually hosted the Winter Cycling Congress. And I have to admit, it was the coldest weather we'd had in a long time. I think we had 6 weeks where it didn't get up above minus 25. But actually it was kind of a positive thing because we really got to demonstrate what you can do in cold winter weather. This particular group ride, we had over 300 people come out, which I thought was really great. It was minus 24. And it was all ages as well. We even had trikes with some elderly people in them. So yeah, no one was left behind. We did a full moon ride where we would all get on our bikes, kind of like the bike rave, and put on some bike lights, bring some firewood, and we would go to a local park and have a barbecue. Super fun way to get around safely as a group, and it's really fun way to get to the park and not worry about driving home. And then of course, this was me in a bike rave, pedal powering the music here. But we did lots of other things too. And, you know, I mean, by all means, throw your ideas out there. We did an ET ride where we put a giant ET in the front basket and we all wore red hoodies and handed out candy to the kids in our neighborhood. We've done group bike packing trips. So we help each other go camping by bike instead of driving. Usually it was an overnight trip. We even did a prom ride where we all dress up in prom dresses and tuxes, and we went to a community hall and had a dance. And it was really fun riding around, you know, all dressed up, although a bit challenging if you have a long skirt. And then what can you do to help support this vision of active transport? Well, one, you can become a member of the West Kootenay Cycling Coalition. So if you go to our webpage, westkootenaycycling.ca, there is a membership page where you can sign up. I mean, talk about the vision with everybody. I mean, if you think this is viable, I mean, convince your family and friends and maybe even your workplace to help support, you know, people getting around other than driving. Attend group active transport events like the ones I just discussed and help build community around normalizing using bikes and walking and taking the bus. Engage by writing letters, making phone calls, attending meetings where public input's encouraged. You get involved generally. Sign petitions. So if you see that we're asking for support, you know, to put a particular type of infrastructure in place, please help us out with your signature. Walk the talk by actually using active transport. Perhaps you don't have the ability to do it right now, but maybe you could build it into your future activities. Maybe you could, you know, choose to make your next trip to the park by bicycle or take a bus to work once a day, or I mean, once a week. We could also consider using existing infrastructure, as I mentioned before, using community halls more for those kind of meetups. Maybe the neighborhood convenience store. I always think that the Tagum store at Shell, or the Shell station at Tagum, would just make such a great place to have a coffee shop and a good, you know, bus stop, as well as place for bike racks and stuff like that. Parks. I mean, a lot of the parks don't even have public washrooms. These kind of things would be fairly easy to install and more people would benefit from them. I lived in Norway for a couple of years, and one of the things they did there, they have zero tolerance for drinking and driving. So they made it possible to rent school buses off hours. And I remember once living in a village on the western part of Norway in the middle of nowhere. That's exactly what happened. Is the villagers decided they wanted to go to a nightclub in a city an hour away. So they just hired a bus, and the bus came and picked us all up like we were going to school. And we went to the nightclub, and then it took us all home safely. But I'm thinking, you know, could we not utilize those buses for other things, like, you know, a shuttle to the ski hill? The ski hill still doesn't have a viable way to get there by public transit. Perhaps for festivals like the Castlegar Jazz Fest or Shambhala, or even getting students to Selkirk College and in between the campuses off hours. I also had a job there where employers all provided transportation. So perhaps some of the bigger employers in the Kootenays could have their own way of busing and providing transportation to their employees. Nelson has a microloan program through their Nelson Hydro for purchasing electric bicycles. I think it's completely feasible to see if Fortis and BC Hydro could offer similar programs outside of the city. Electric bikes make cycling a lot more accessible, especially in our hilly area that we live in. And, you know, if it's crappy weather, you might want to get home faster than you could pedal with just a acoustic bike. And then there's little things about maintenance. I noticed the other day that there was a mom and walking along the highway near Playmore Junction with her kid in a stroller, which I found incredibly dangerous considering that there was a bike path almost, you know, like 20 meters away. But I did discover that that trail, that section of the trail from the Slocan trailhead to Frog Peak is not actually maintained. To me, that's something that the public should probably ask for. Make sure that it's plowed year round so that it's accessible. I'm sure tons of people in that neighborhood right around Mount Sentinel School would be happy to utilize that pathway off the highway, even in the winter. So we're in the midst of a perfect storm of climate change, pandemics, inflation, social unrest, wars. We need to abandon social status quo thinking and be creative. We really need to use our imaginations. And I'm hoping that you guys are going to be willing to offer even more ideas. I don't think there's any bad ideas out there. I think working together, we can do fantastic things. Although, you know, the West Kootenay Cycling Coalition's primary focus is cycling, I mean, we support all active transport. And to effectively connect the Kootenays, we have to deploy all types of transport. So, you know, we really see this network including everybody, including car shares. I mean, perhaps these bus stops, you know, they have great parking for people that, you know, simply can't ride a bike, but need to have that extra mobility access. Once we have this feasibility study in place, we're going to need to design and develop detailed plans in collaboration with local municipalities, cities, you, the residents, transportation planners, engineers. We're going to need to raise money and demand from our local, provincial, and federal leaders to support networks like this. We're going to have to negotiate with CP Rail to be able to put some things in, like the passenger rail. And, you know, these are all worthwhile. It's the right thing to do. We need to do it to stay healthy. Active transport is definitely healthier for us. It's cleaner air. It's going to provide a lot more affordable transportation for everybody. It's taking direct action for climate change. And if we are all working on this together, there's no reason why we can't make this a reality. And as a closing thought, I just want to throw some ideas out there. I would love to be able to hop on a train in Nelson and take my bike to Creston to pick cherries, or bike from Castlegar to Shore Acres for the day at the beach and be able to take a bus home, catch a shuttle bus to Whitewater right at the end of my driveway on a Saturday, or meet friends at Tagham Hall, and each one of them is able to get there without driving. I want you to think about how a network like this could be utilized, how you could use it, what would make you want to use it, and really support active transport in our Kootenays, so we don't have to drive everywhere anymore. And that's it.
Well, thank you, Salita. I love to be able to use our imaginations to create a different future, and that's so inspiring. We've got this poll to launch, and you'll need to scroll down. There's a total of 4 questions. So once I launch it, then you know, just take your bar to go down and answer each of the questions. We'll share the results, and then we're going to jump into some breakout rooms to have some smaller discussions, come back and have some time for Q&A still. So I'm going to launch the polls, and you know what? I launched them earlier as a test, and it wants me to share results. So I think I've got to do that first, and then I've got to stop share. Let's see if I can launch it again. What? Okay, does anybody know how to reset? Relaunch poll, there we go. Okay. Okay, are you seeing the poll now on your screen? Somebody give me a
Yes.
thumbs up. Okay, perfect. So don't forget to scroll down to answer all 4 questions, and we'll keep it open for a minute or so.
Uh-oh, I'm not seeing the poll.
That's because you're a co-host.
Oh, I don't get to answer the questions?
No, isn't that a bummer?
Darn.
I don't get to either.
Well, and if you guys have any questions, by all means, throw them out now.
Let's let them concentrate, though. I can see the results coming in. Okay, so far 64% have participated in question 1. Now we're at 76. Okay. Right, we're at 84% for the poll. Give it another minute. Okay, I don't see anything else coming in, so just going to go ahead and end the poll for oh, somebody else finished. Okay, finished up. Okay, and thank you. If people have to go before breakout sessions too, that's totally fine. Okay, we're at 92%, so I'm going to end poll now and we'll look at the results. Okay, so you can see this results now on your screen. Assuming somebody give me a thumbs up that they can see the results. Okay,
Looks
great.
like
Awesome.
public transit needs an upgrade.
Okay. Yes, so it looks like most people are getting around on car and walking. Great. Work is the primary reason for commuting, and then shopping. Most have under 10 kilometers or don't have a daily commute. So 1 to 5 kilometers being the most
Yeah,
common.
that's a pretty short distance.
Mhm.
You know, walking and riding 5 kilometers is totally doable for a short trip. So that's kind of encouraging. I was thinking that the distances would be longer.
And then what modes of transportation would you use if it was available? And yeah, all of the above: train and e-bike and bicycle and walking and bus. So
I love that the train is the most popular.
Yeah. So, well, awesome. Okay. Well, thanks. I'll stop sharing that now. And Michael was going to create the breakout rooms. So how are we doing, Michael?
They're ready to go whenever we are.
Okay. So we've got about, say, around 15 minutes in the breakout rooms, and there's a couple of questions. And we do have some jam boards. I'll go ahead and make sure that folks have that information. Trish, I think you got that link. You're going to be facilitating one of the breakouts, and Salita, I think I shared that with you. Okay, so ready to roll then.
So this must be our room, right? Some of you guys are staying with me. We're not going anywhere.
Yes, this is our breakout room. Everybody else seems to have joined their other ones.
Okay. All right. Well, let me get this jam board rolling here. I'm going to share the screen again. Oh, will this work? Yeah, that's how I do the Jamboard, right, Michael?
Yes,
Okay.
partially.
Uh-oh. Is it the whiteboard?
Yes.
Okay. All right, you guys, sorry. I'm like flying by the seat of my pants here. Oh, wait.
And
but it-
then
oh, yeah, here we
other
go.
people can join via the link that I just sent in chat.
Okay. So we're going to talk about the biggest barriers in using active transport. So what prohibits you from using your bike or walking? It could be anything. It could be distances, it could be weather, it could be that you have a mobility challenge. It could be that you don't have access to it. So yeah, let's discuss.
Salita,
And you can add your thoughts onto this Jamboard here. Let me see, with a sticky note. There we go. You can even designate it a color.
Salita, just to let you know, I don't think we're viewing the Jamboard. I think we're seeing a whiteboard instead of your Jamboard.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Or we can just talk about stuff too, if this is too difficult.
I can always share screen with the Jamboard if that's easier.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
I went to the Jamboard through the link from the chat.
I thought I did
So I can
too,
see
but
it. I can see it through there. I'll just go there.
So for me, I commute from Nelson to Castlegar. When I first got this job in 2020, I looked at active transportation options. I believe it's over a 2-hour bicycle and like an hour and 40-minute bus ride, because the buses don't transfer to the location that I need to get to in a reasonable amount of time, in a reasonable time frame. So I'm stuck driving basically.
yeah, yeah, it's a problem. So what we've been trying to do is figure out how we can get around that. I mean, obviously better public transit would be super helpful. And you know, I think, you know, even biking could be viable, even shorter distances if those other pieces of infrastructure were in place. So
yeah, if I had an e-bike that could keep me at a really good speed, and then off-road options, because some of that highway is kind of sketchy and doesn't have much of a shoulder, it would be something I'd consider once a week or something like that.
So what kind of infrastructure would you need if to say take an e-bike all the time? Like, would a separated pathway, would that be enough? Or would you also need to know that there's like a bus you could hop on if you needed to?
Well, I just don't think even an e-bike wouldn't be able to get me to work in under an hour.
Right.
I start at 8:30, so I leave at 7:30. In the winter, it's dark. So yeah, I would need like, I'd need a lot of other options that aren't
a train.
biking.
Well, whereabouts?
Well,
do you live?
the train was my first top pick. I live in Nelson.
Okay. Yeah, I actually think the train has had the most, although, you know, I'd love to see a cycle track, but I found that the train was the one piece of infrastructure that everyone was the most excited about. But again, you know, it is only running along the river and you still have to get to the train station. But, you know, if you live in those hubs like Nelson, it totally makes sense.
Yeah, it's the challenge of the first and last kilometer, right? Like it's easy to get people to a certain point, but biggest challenge I think in planning is the first and last kilometer.
Yeah, absolutely. What does everyone else think?
Well, I wouldn't want to go along the Beasley Bluffs, that's for sure, on a bicycle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
safety is the issue. We live close enough, we could easily bicycle into Nelson on a regular basis if it were safe.
Yeah,
Even
so
without
safety.
an e-bike.
Okay, well, I'll just add that in there. Safety is a barrier, right? A big one. Anyone else?
I added in hills. I live in Nelson and I often prefer to I go between walking and car usage. But I'd love to, I feel intimidated by the hills. It feels like you were mentioning, just that mind shift between exercise and commuting. And it feels like it's a major venture. If I go out on my bicycle, it's like, oh, today I'm going on my bike. And I don't have an e-bike at the moment. So yeah.
I agree. Well, when it was really hot in the summer, our driveway is about 1 kilometer long and it's quite steep. I bet you some of the grade is like 12%. And, in the fall or the spring when it's, cool out, you can, suffer through that hill. But when it's 38 degrees out, I was just, I drove. I have to admit it.
Right.
But I did electrify my cargo bike. So I now have a way to get around it, but I didn't do that until after the heat wave. So hopefully I can try it out this summer, but yeah.
Yeah, it's very exciting to have the pilot for the cargo bikes, because that would take away my car usage, which is primarily, for groceries and the large shops.
Good to know.
I look forward to trying that out. Can you say a bit more about that, or when you expect that to roll out?
Well, Glenn, our president, would know more about it because he's the one that's sitting on the board. It's actually being rolled out at a federal level from an organization in Winnipeg. I believe that they don't think they can have it in place until this fall because the bikes actually have to be purchased and then distributed. But it's kind of fun that Nelson is chosen as one of the hubs. So yeah, and I mean, I think it'll make it accessible for a lot of people, not just commuting, but also, the thing like going to the grocery store or, taking your kid to the park or, an activity or something. So yeah, I'm excited about it. And so we're gonna have to decide where that hub is gonna go, like where you're gonna be able to check those bikes out.
Right.
And then, yeah, I'm thinking that maybe the chamber where the train station is might be a viable solution.
Nice.
We're also trying to work with the city and CP. I don't know how successful we'll be with CP, but to me, it's a no-brainer to have a train crossing there at the train station so that we can get from there to the riverfront. Because I don't know how you would put separated pathways in along that really busy front street.
Well, that would be great for all the lakefront access so that we don't have to have the illegal crossing along the rail lines now.
Right. So I'm thinking that, with enough public support that perhaps CP would be persuaded to open that bottleneck right there.
Well, so I'll just say from my professional perspective as well, so I'm the sustainability planner for the regional district and really interested in this as considering a pilot to expand throughout the region and, to see how we can overcome that what is perceived as that barrier in rural areas and how we link our urban hubs. But also from the RDCK, because our offices are down on Lakeside, it'd be great to have consider us as part of your advocacy support so that we can, because a lot of our folks go across the rail lines illegally.
Right.
It'd be great to have a safe passage. Yeah.
Yeah, they did that in my neighborhood where I used to live in Calgary too. They had a train crossing and then they just arbitrarily decided to close it, and it was a major route. And it made people have to walk around like 2 kilometers. But what happens is people just illegally cross, and it doesn't matter how big that fence gets. Someone finds a way through. So it actually poses a greater problem. So, but I just don't know how CP got so much power.
Oh yeah, that's a great question.
they're like right up there with kings and queens. Yeah. But I don't know. I like to believe that there's power in numbers, and that if we get enough of us complaining, that they would lose face if they don't.
Well, and
rail crossings.
The safety issue is a good one, and they have to actually regulate the railway in Nelson to issue tickets. So I mean, it's a staffing cost for them as well, which potentially creating infrastructure would be less burdensome.
Yeah, I also think they should upgrade Troop. You can take that because it's quite a nice park area, but there's really no like safe accessibility to it, and no one will build any pathways down to the beach because, well, it's considered no trespassing.
Yeah.
Well, but to me, that's just like, it's a no-brainer. That should be just be a nice public park. And at the end of the trail, there should be nice bike parking so you can walk down to the beach, and it should be a nice, well-maintained pathway.
Yeah.
So, those are the kind of things that I would look at. And then, if we have passenger rail, maybe you can take the train back. There should be a station there.
Nice.
So,
Salita, I guess one question I had was, I saw your list of partners. I didn't notice any from the city of Castlegar. Has that not been successful, or?
oh, well, we did talk to the rep commission. Yeah, these are all people that actually sat in on our planning meetings.
Okay.
But I mean, anyone is welcome to join. But we just want to let people know who actually was already part of this kind of consultation that we had put together.
Okay, yeah, I guess I was just curious because I work for the city, and yeah, I guess I'm interested in biking infrastructure and improving it. So I was just curious if there had been troubles getting through or anything, and like just letting you know that I can always provide the right context if needed.
Well, interestingly enough, I find kind of Castlegar a bit of an inspiration, because if you look at the report, the Eco Society put together a pretty good study, and they looked at which transportation options people would be most interested in developing. And active transport was hands down the most popular across the Kootenays in every community, even more so than electric vehicles, because for obvious reasons, electric vehicles are usually out of people's price range. But Castlegar, interestingly enough, had the lowest support, although it still had a majority of support for active transport. But, they're the first ones to put in the separated pathways. And pretty decent infrastructure as well. So
Yeah.
if they can do it, I was going to say, if they can do it, then I mean, Nelson can do it.
Yeah, it's an interesting city. It's got a lot of flat land, which certainly helps in terms of building the extra wide roads and stuff like that. But what I discovered recently is we don't actually have any maps of the bike lanes within the city.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, we'll have to work on that.
That's a project I'm going to do this spring.
Oh, awesome. Well,
Good idea.
if you need some help, I mean, by all means, just reach out to the Cycling Coalition. I mean, and be a member and tell us what to do. Okay.
I think I might be. I know I've certainly helped with Cycling Coalition projects in the past in Nelson. Like I've done bike counts on the High Street bike path and stuff like that. So, but yeah, no, that's definitely. It was just something that I was curious about. Like I said, I was just curious about the engagement with the city and whatnot. So.
Yeah, no, we're trying to engage with everybody for sure. I guess we've kind of been answering all the other questions along the way here. Our next question was solutions to active transport barriers. So obviously we've discussed that. And was there a third one? No, I guess there's just 3 pages in here. Okay. I guess perhaps I should add some of these in here, hey? So passenger rail seems like it would be a no-brainer. And rail crossings, hey?
Mm-hmm.
And feel free to add anything in here if you want.
I think the bike maintenance of existing bike infrastructure is lower hanging fruit that would be interesting to see municipalities do a better job with.
Particularly in the winter? Yeah.
Well, in the winter, but also just like bike lanes are so often in the winter just perceived as snow storage. Like, oh yeah, just like plow it into the bike, like plow the snow into the bike lanes and then just leave it there until the spring. And then it clears off in the spring and it's just like a sandbox until they go through and clean it. So like, oh, no one's cycling anyways. But I think that's probably pretty low hanging fruit because it's easy to get the numbers at this point, how many people are cycling in the winter. I live on High Street and like tons of people are going by, even in the winter. I mean, relative tons, a lot more than I'd expect are going by all winter.
I agree with you. And that was why I mentioned that section on the Slocan Rail Trail is that, people are walking on the highway because they couldn't clear the snow on this pathway that's like literally right beside the highway, which seemed like to me a no-brainer. Why wouldn't they do that? There's a lot of people that live in there and use that corridor.
And actually, this is something, a barrier. Yeah, and in terms of extending the rail, I drive that route every day. Constantly see kids on the side of the highway going to their bus stop.
Right.
And these are like 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds. It looks like sometimes. Like,
yeah, it's
I
terrifying.
wouldn't want my kids doing that.
No, I agree. Well, you guys, it looks like we've been locked out of our breakout room. We're back to the main meeting.
Love how we get yanked out mid-sentence. When we all get back to in person, it's so much harder. Hello, get back. So, well, yeah, thank you. I'm hoping maybe to hear a little snapshot of what was discussed in each of the sessions. So maybe those of you that were in the main session, you know, a couple of ideas that came out of it on barriers or overcoming those barriers with opportunities.
Maybe I'll start, and I'm sorry I was technically challenged and I couldn't write on the whiteboard, so I took, manual notes. And I just wanted to point out a hello, Seal. It was you. It was 1 year ago. I made a presentation to Trails BC and opened my big mouth about I have a dream. And it's a year later and our dream is on paper and we're applying for funding and way to go. So thank you, Seal. Our group talked to me. Yeah, we did talk about biggest barriers to using active transportation. Safety came up a lot. A bit about the Nelson High Street, 3rd Avenue. And that's not, there's work to be done. Still frightening. We talked about the dream and curious about whether passenger rail is in the foreseeable future, but we also like the dream. We pointed out some pinch points, Tagum Bridge, the bluffs, and safety, always safety, maintenance and winter riding, and was pointed out. And then electric bikes are a game changer, also having room for the electric scooters and golf carts and that sort of thing, making sure they're able to be on our thing, infrastructure and service. And the bottom line was we've got to sort of change so that's a culture of active transportation. There you go. That's what I heard in my group.
Wow. Great discussion. How about the other group that Salita that you were in? Sure. Are you the spokesperson?
I am. Well, or unless anyone else wants to be. We reflect the same concerns about safety. We definitely talked a lot about safety. People just don't feel safe, and for various reasons, either proximity to traffic, it's dark, even weather, and which led us into some of the fairly simple solutions. And one of them is just maintenance. I mean, there are routes, as I discussed in the presentation, that just obvious snow clearance would make those routes more viable year round. In Castlegar, for example, the bike paths, they have built these lovely separated bike paths, but I did notice that they were impassable throughout the winter. They were basically snow storage, and I cringed to see what they look like now, probably covered in gravel. I mean,
we're cleaning them right now, actually.
Okay, yay.
Giving them a good hose off.
Yeah, another barrier was distance. So, if we had some of those other links like passenger rail, which seems very popular, but even buses to get you that last distance, it may not be feasible to ride 40 kilometers a day, but maybe 10, and you could, catch a bus part of the way. So those are the kind of, barriers and solutions that that we're looking at. And these are things that, you know, should be fairly easy to implement, even if we don't have a bicycle route right away.
Great. Well, thanks. See, we've only got 5 minutes left. So I'll just say we talked about many of those same barriers in our breakout session. And there were some really interesting ideas that Ciel had from who's with Trails BC about some advocacy work as well, in terms of and Ciel, if you wanted to unmute, maybe talk about some of those ideas, just so that we can kind of have that bigger picture of what could be done provincially. That would be really helpful. And then we'll wrap up. Maybe time for one additional question.
I don't have the board in front of me, but I think the Motor Vehicle Act needs to be updated. There's a lot of people that are working on that for the passing lanes. We need to make sure that, of course, any new highway infrastructure also has cycling infrastructure built into it, and that's not happening. We need to make sure we've got managers within each road district in the province who are active transportation specialists, meaning, you know, like planners and engineers and all that. Because right now there's just have a very small crew, dedicated crew over on the coast. I don't know what else I said, but
that was, yeah, those were the main things, talking about the Motor Vehicle Act, and then funding cycling groups. If the province could fund these small cycling groups to figure out the best routes within their area as well.
yeah. And lastly, I would love to have the Trans-Canada Trail be designated non-motorized again, because so many people want to ride long distances, and also the Trans-Canada Trail goes through all the communities. So it just makes sense, but it's just getting destroyed.
Yeah, I agree with you on that about the Trans-Canada Trail. And I was going to mention too that we are aware that the highways is supposed to actually consult about active transport every time it does work. But you're right, they haven't been doing it. And basically what highways told us was that, well, if you want it done, you have to let us know. So here we are. Let's let them know.
Yeah,
so we're starting with the North Shore, actually. Apparently it is slated to be repaved. And so we've basically told them that, yeah, you got to listen to us. We want to make a safe cycling route there.
yeah, super, super good. Okay, good for me to know.
And how do we find out when those paving projects come on? That was something I thought of a few years ago when they paved 3A. And,
we have some volunteers on our in our coalition who are keeping in touch with them and keeping us up to date. And we actually recently went on a bike ride up the North Shore, just kind of looking at some of those pinch points to report back.
Yeah,
but I mean, if you have suggestions, I mean, throw it out there, because we can put it on our list, which is getting bigger.
That's fantastic. So thank you. This is great. I wanted to remind folks, if you wanted to save chat, there were some good discussions in there. You can, do that by going to the chat, bottom of the chat, where those 3 little buttons that say more. And I'll also follow up if you registered with an email with some of the information as well. So thank you so much for, coming and on this journey with us to discuss this really important issue. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your day and have a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, thanks so much.